Lloyd Vance does a great job covering the NFL, and of course, correspondent for the NFL Network, does a great job writing and covering the league. Kind enough to join me for a couple moments on a Wednesday. What's going on, pal?
Not too much, Q. Hope you had a good holiday.
I did. Thank you for asking, and of course, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and yours. Let's get into the Eagles real quick, and I guess the takeaway Monday night against the Raiders. I'm just curious, your thoughts. We saw Foles light it up against the Giants, and then offense struggled on Monday night. With all that being said, do you believe Doug is going to lean in deciding we're gonna play these starters on Sunday in a meaningless game against the Cowboys? And if so, do you agree with that?
Well, Q, I think he's going to try to save face a little bit and play some of his starters early in this game. But as you're alluding to, there's really not much on the line for the Eagles to play here. They always wrapped up the number one seed home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So I think he'll get those guys out of the game very early. I know he wants them to try to get some reps in because, as you were kind of saying, did not look good against the Raiders. Yes, it was a win, but kind of felt like a loss the way they played. Were not sharp, so they're going to try to get some guys out there. But I think in the end, you're probably going to see a lot of Ezekiel Elliott and the Dallas Cowboys in the second half.
The one thing about their defense, they did make the plays late against the Giants. They had to make a play late against the Raiders. They're 13-2 at home under Doug, and the defense has allowed 197 points in those games. So you're talking about 13.1 points per game, and they were on the mark the other night. Now, come playoff time, they're probably going to take on a team from the NFC South, whether it's Atlanta, Carolina, or New Orleans. With that being said, out of those potential three teams, what team do you think would be a matchup nightmare against the Eagles?
Yeah, I probably think it would be the New Orleans Saints right now, the way they're playing. They got a two-headed monster in the backfield with Alvin Kamara and well as Mark Ingram, and Drew Brees is not throwing the ball as much. He's still completing a lot of passes, over 70%, but he's just not putting the ball as much in the air. And that defense has gotten a lot better with Marshawn Lattimore, probably going to be Rookie of the Year, and a bunch of other guys playing well. So the Saints will be a difficult matchup. We saw them earlier this year beat the Carolina Panthers in a close evening game, but in that game that kind of turned when Luke Kuechly went out the game. So that would be a tough matchup for them. They always seem to play Matt Ryan pretty well. So if the Falcons get in, that would be probably a good situation for the Eagles.
Yeah, and it's basically a win and get in and need some help for the Falcons. Same thing with Seattle as well. When you look at Carolina, the Eagles beat Carolina before, and that Y9 is pretty disruptive in the pass against Cam Newton. So defensively, they kind of have Cam Newton's number.
They did. And the thing is with Carolina, whenever your quarterback is your number one rusher, you can just try to take him out of the game and then kind of go from there. So, it would be best for Ron Rivera and his offense to kind of get McCaffrey going in the screen game and kind of get some other guys running football, whether it's Stewart or somebody else. But Cam was just kind of erratic in that game versus the Eagles, and it played right into the Eagles' hands. So Carolina, very dangerous team, particularly built around that defense. A big matchup, if they do play the Eagles, would be Big V versus Julius Peppers, who's found the fountain of youth.
I'm just curious. I know I want to talk about a couple of these games, but when you look at Coach of the Year, McVay, Zimmer, Doug, Marrone, Belichick, I don't know if I'm missing anyone. I think that's, for those guys that I just gave you. Who in your estimation, your opinion, would be deserving? I know it's not a big deal, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, they're all well-deserving, and I do have a vote with the Pro Football Writers of America. We vote on these types of awards, and when I look at it, I think what Sean McVay has really done has been incredible. You think how downtrodden that team was moving to Los Angeles, and they just couldn't seem to find any right notes last year, and he has all these guys playing so well. The Rams could be one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs, so probably he'd be number one choice. But obviously, Doug Peterson, worst to first, done a great job. Doug Marrone as well, worst to first with the Jaguars. All these guys are very worthy, but the Rams guy will probably win it.
Interesting. I won't ask you who you're voting for until the time comes. Or I'll ask you when the voting's done. I'll put you on the spot. All right. We saw Pittsburgh release James Harrison, which is not a surprise, and we saw New England snatch him up, which, again, is not a surprise. It's just another example of Belichick kind of being Belichick. You think this is more or less play some mind and mental games with Pittsburgh, or you believe that they'll try to utilize Harrison come playoff time, whether it's a third down situational pass rusher?
Well, I think it's a little both. It's some gamesmanship involved here. Let's face it. As soon as you were released, I was thinking, oh, the Patriots are probably going to try to grab him because they like those leadership type of guys. We saw that before with Junior Seau going there at the end of his career, and I think that Harrison is going to provide them an edge rusher, as you're saying, and obvious passing downs. Because right now they really don't have Trey Flowers on the outside, and they need a guy to bring some heat because they traded Chandler Jones over to Arizona last year. So this is a big opportunity for them with James Harrison. I know they'll try to pick his brain, but in the end, it's going to come down to can Brady beat that defense that's going to be blitzing him.
Should we read into anything regarding Kansas City starting rookie Patrick Mahomes at quarterback against Denver when everything's already wrapped up and Alex Smith is going to sit? We already know they're going to be a playoff team. They clinched the AFC title. They're locked in as the fourth seed, so nothing can change there. Is this just, hey, Andy Reid wants to give these guys a rest and they want to get a look at Mahomes?
Yeah, Andy Reid kind of relaxed and wasn't worried about Week 16. Week 17 when he put on that Santa Claus outfit in his presser. And, I think he's just going to play the guys that are backups, and that was his MO when he was here with Philadelphia, give his guys rest, even though they may not win the game. But I think Mahomes is a good young quarterback, very strong arm, and we know they're probably going to move on to him next season. So Alex Smith will sit and rest, and that team has finally gotten hot at the end of the season because they had that big lull in the middle of it.
That's a great point. Again, a couple of minutes with Lloyd Vance. Does a great job covering the NFL, correspondent for the NFL Network as well. Great follow on Twitter. In Kansas City, they're looking at their 10th win to close out the season. They're 9-6 right now. I'm curious, when you look at what's going on with the Giants that have just played uninspiring football, I mean, their season was over when Odell Beckham got hurt in the preseason against Cleveland. It just seemed like it zapped the life out of that team, and we don't need to go back. Everything's been documented, but I want to get your thoughts when you hear Collins come out and basically rip Eli Apple, call him a cancer in the locker room, basically he has to go. That's really putting the new GM and the new head coach really in a precarious position because Apple was a top 10 draft pick. But it just shows you when it gets bad, it really gets bad with the team, and it's rare where you have a guy actually come out and put one of his teammates on blast like that.
Yeah, it's true dysfunction, and we have not seen this in probably forever with the Giants. They've always stayed the course with the Mara family and been very classy organization. And I know they don't like this infighting out in front of the media and everybody coming down on Apple. Yes, he's had his difficulties, and he and Collins probably need to get over it because they've invested a lot in both players being former first-round draft picks. So whoever the new general manager is coming in there, they do have to clean it up. And I think it's going to start with a very solid draft. Probably they'll go quarterback. Eli Manning has said he wanted to stay around. So the interesting thing will be, does he get his wish and stick around with the team in this rebuilding situation?
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of decision comes March 5th with that roster bonus as well. So they'll have an idea what direction they're going to go prior to that. Last one before I let you get out of here. We've been talking about the officiating over the last several weeks, what's a catch, what's not a catch. One of the officials said to the Bills players the other day, I don't know why the Kelvin Benjamin TD was overturned. That's probably not a good look for the NFL when an official says that.
Sure, I lost you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mentioned the Kelvin Benjamin touchdown overturned on a replay, and I said one of the officials said to the Bills, I don't know why that touchdown was overturned. That's probably not the comment the NFL wants to be out there.
You're right. And this is something, as soon as the league meetings start happening right after the Super Bowl, all these guys will be together during Super Bowl week, and they're going to talk about what rules change need to come in. Obviously, you have fans debating this out in public on Twitter, and it's just not good for overall for the game. And Sean McDermott was visibly upset in terms of hearing that information from that official. So they need to clean it up because the eyeball test is just failing over and over again. Most fans, and including you and I, we thought that was a touchdown for the Steelers, and then the same thing with this Benjamin catch.
All right. Yeah, the NFL's got a lot of work to do. And, of course, Lloyd Vance, NFL Network contributor, Pro Football Writers Association, as well as America. Great follow on Twitter, @Lloyd Vance. All right, my friend, enjoy the games this weekend. We'll get into the playoffs next week. I always appreciate you jumping on board. Have a safe and happy New Year, pal.
All right, you too, and talk to you later.